Hello everyone, this week I want to talk about a really tricky topic, which is euthanasia. What to do when our pets get towards the end of their lives and it seems that their passing isn't going to be natural. And if it is going to be natural, it's going to be a painful, difficult process for them to go through. Anybody who's watched a person die knows that it is possibly one of the most traumatic things a human being can experience. Watching this other person go through death. So in animals we have a responsibility, and that responsibility is to put their welfare ahead of all other considerations. That's not to say though that it shouldn't affect us. Making these decisions can be really, really tricky, and this week I'd like to have a little think about the kind of things that we should be thinking about when we're considering whether we should put our dog, cat, hamster, horse to sleep. So these animals are part of our family. We don't have them for any other reason other than they give us a lot of pleasure and to give them pleasure. They trust us implicitly. We trust them. We have a very deep and strong bond with them. And when it comes to the time to make the decision to let them go, it can be really tricky because we have a huge amount of emotion comes up around the decision. The main emotion that I see is guilt. Essentially, this animal has given us a lot of love over its life. We feel very connected to it. It has complete trust in us. We look after them, we take them out for walks, we groom them, we keep them healthy. And the idea of doing something which on the surface looks as though it's positively going to harm them, it can be a really difficult concept to get our minds around. Now, one of the things that we say when we're getting taught about how to perform euthanasias is that euthanasia isn't a welfare issue. And by that we mean that animals have no sense of what's coming in the future beyond a very sort of immediate and I suppose instinctual fear or excitement. They have no concept of death. And so we can find that people get wound up with the ideas of the animal losing their life, whereas animals tend to live much more in the present. And so they don't have that fear that we see in people when they're getting towards the end of their life. So we anthropomorphize them, but actually that's not doing them any favours. What we need to be doing is taking a much more global view of what's going on. So first of all, feeling guilty is an entirely normal and natural part of making the decision of whether you should put an animal to sleep. However, you shouldn't take that as a sign that you are doing something wrong. It's entirely natural and normal. So it can be really, really tough to make that call. So what are my main markers for what I do, what I advise when we're looking at whether we should put a much loved pet to sleep or not? So I would say, if despite treatment, life isn't a joy, they can't do the things that they want to do, it's a drag, and there's little prospect of any improvement, even with medication, then that's time to seriously consider whether it would be fair to let them go on or whether the kindest thing would be to put them to sleep. So what is it that dogs like to do? So young dogs, they like to run around, they like to play, they like to be part of the family, they want to eat, go on walks, etc., etc. Older dogs, it changes slightly. Perhaps they want to have a little bit more time with you. They're not so interested in play. They still want to socialise. Cats, well, they want to be able to move around. They want to be able to get through life without pain, as dogs and we do as well. So it's essentially, animals want to be able to exhibit all those normal behaviours that they would do in day-to-day life if they didn't have the problem that you're concerned about. So whether that's arthritis, whether it's blindness, whether it's any other pain from, I don't know, a particular cancer or disease process. If these things are interfering with their ability to get through the day and enjoy the day, then and there's no prospect of them getting better, then that's really my sign that we should be starting to think about whether it's fairer to put them to sleep. However, it can be really difficult because there's no exact moment where you can actually put your finger on and say, now is the exact moment when they should be put to sleep, because it's a grayscale. Animals are healthy, they start to develop an issue, the issue doesn't get any better, it starts to get to the point where that issue is starting to interfere with the ability to have a good quality of life, and then it gets worse and worse and worse until we come to a point where we, or the vets, or your friends, someone starts to say this is unacceptable, and then eventually we make that decision. So it's very much a grayscale. It's a process. People get very concerned about when they should make that decision. So I always counsel that conditions tend to wax and wane a little bit. So the arthritis might be bad one day, it might be a little bit better the next day, and then it's bad again the next day. But overall, we should be looking for a trend. Is it going along horizontally, so bad, good, and essentially the overall average quality of life is acceptable or good? Or are we finding that it's good, then going to bad, and then good and bad, and the overall trend is downwards despite any kind of treatment? If the overall trend is downwards, then you need to be very careful that you're being as objective as you can be about assessing the quality of life for your pet, because comparing them to the day before, it will look like it's just a little bit worse, and the day before that just a little bit worse than that, and so the change doesn't feel really dramatic, and so there isn't the emotional drive to do something immediately. However, if you take it over a period of a few weeks, then the change can be quite dramatic. It's gone down little bits day by day. It's the same old thing about watching a clock. You never see a clock's minute hand or hour hand move. It's just a gradual change that we don't notice. So we need to try and be honest with ourselves and say, look, a month ago, if my dog or my cat couldn't get out of bed or was wetting themselves in the bed, I would have said that was unacceptable at that point. So there's a few things that you can do to help with assess that quality of life. Pick the 3 things that they really like to do when they were younger. Can they still enjoy those 3 things? If they love going out on walks, going out chasing a ball, and they love to run to the front door and make a fuss when people were coming to the house, can they still do those things? If they can't do those things, and it's not just a normal getting older and a little bit more emotionally stable thing, then those are signs that perhaps you need to start to be wondering about whether you should be putting them to sleep or not. I'm being very cautious about this here, because obviously we wouldn't expect an old dog always to do what a younger dog would do. So I'm talking more about before the disease process started to where the disease process is now. What's the change that you've got there? Be honest, mark the bad days and good days off on a calendar, maybe even give them a score. Was today a 10 out of 10 day for being happy? Was today a 0 out of 10 day for being happy? Try and give yourself markers about what it is that it is to have a good day. Is a good day that they come down and they sit on their lap and they purr and they make a fuss of you. So you can actually note where, and be sort of objective and note where you think the problems are starting to arise. If there's a significant number of bad days, then again that can be a sign that the time is coming. We can also look at the 4H's 2M scale. So 5H's 2M scale. So assess how much they hurt. How hungry are they? How hydrated are they? How happy are they? how hygienic are they? So hurt is obvious. Hunger, if their appetite is completely suppressed, that can be a sign of pain and internal issues. Hydration, people as they get older, when they lose the will to live, will often go off drinking and become dehydrated, and that causes problems. How generally happy are they in day-to-day life? How hygienic are they? How able are they to keep themselves clean? Animals do like to keep themselves clean. If they are becoming matted, then it's because they don't care anymore, or it's because they are physically unable to keep themselves clean, and it can be quite distressing for them. The two M's are mobility. How mobile are they? Is that okay, that mobility that they get, or is it unacceptable? And the other M is more. Are they having more good days than bad? Score each one of these things out of 10, and if the majority of these scores are under 5, then again it might be time to let them go. I can't overemphasize just what a tough time this is, and for me, I always think that you guys, you love your animals, you love your pets, and I know that the vast majority of cases, when people bring their pets to me for this or want to talk about it, they've thought about it in a really deep and considered manner. And so really it's your opinion that counts. Now, if I think that there is a definite welfare issue, I promise you I will tell you. If I think that your pet should be put to sleep, I will tell you that. I'm their advocate, I suppose, in that case. But that happens so infrequently. The vast majority of times that I have people coming in worrying about this, their worries are entirely founded. They've had good reason to think like they're doing, and people are just tearing themselves up with feelings of guilt. And my job is to essentially try to make that process as easy and as painless as possible for both your pet and for you. So what is the process? So it's an overdose of an old type of anaesthetic called pentobarbital, barbiturate. You should expect that we will clip up a little patch on their leg, we will put a catheter into the vein on their leg, and we will inject it, and generally they go to sleep over sort of 30 seconds or so. Now, if they're very anxious, we can look at giving them sedation by injection first of all, or you can ask us in the morning to give them for us to prescribe you some sedation that you can give them prior to them coming in. Now, I say coming in, I much prefer to do this at home. I think that inevitably there's a certain sense of anxiety for them coming into the vets, and I think it's a much nicer process for them to go through if we can do it at home in familiar surroundings. Now, I understand some people won't want to do that, and I understand that some dogs and cats have no problems coming into the vets, but in general, if you can do it at home, do it at home. Some people like to be with them, some people don't like to be with them. I think on balance, being with them is probably better. It makes them feel a little bit more safe, secure. They've got familiar sights, smells, sounds around them when it's happening. And finally, I would urge people to consider coming in and seeing us. Lynn does pre-euthanasia consults. It's like a counselling session where we can go through exactly every step of the process, and we can get all the decisions about where we're going to do it, sedation, are you going to have individual cremation or communal cremation or bury at home? All those decisions are done prior to the actual day that you do it on. And finally, also to recognise that this is a really difficult process. It doesn't matter what other people say, what other people think. They don't have the experience of your relationship with that dog, cat, horse, rabbit, whatever it is. That is a very personal, subjective relationship to you. So however you feel is entirely valid. Don't let other people tell you how you should feel about something. And so when we go through these pre-euthanasia consultations, we can help you to essentially explore those feelings and get comfortable with those feelings. Because putting an animal to sleep when you feel guilty, like you shouldn't have done it, that you were pressured into it, these are all really, really toxic things that will stay for you for a long, long time, stay with you for a long, long time. And so I think basically coming to a point where you're comfortable, not happy, but comfortable with the decision, you know it's the right thing to do, that can really, really help in sort of grieving for them and celebrating their life. So if you've got any questions or comments about this, I'm more than happy to talk about them in the comments, or if you want to give me a call or drop me an email about it. Like I say, I understand just how hard this is. I've gone through it with my own animals on a number of occasions. We're all pet lovers. So if there's anything that I can do, or any questions that I can answer to try and help with this, or if you want to come in, if you know that your animal is coming up to this point and you'd like to book in for one of these pre-euthanasia consultations, then please give us a call and we'll do whatever we can for you. All right, bye.